Hello, beautiful, beautiful women, and thank you so much for being here with me this evening. Welcome to the fifth and final call for the Deeply Satisfied Woman Immersion. It has been such a fun adventure to bring these four topics to you and to share them with you already. And yeah, I've really loved the adventure of sharing these topics as little micro deep dive or micro dives into the topics that I shared in my guide that was released last year, The Deeply Satisfied Woman. And so tonight we are diving in with the fifth and final trait, bone deep courage. And it's such a juicy one and such a rich and such an important topic. So I'm really delighted to be here with all of you. If you are tuning into this replay, thank you for watching and for being with us, and to all of you acknowledging that this call should have and would have taken place last year, but I got quite sick and so we had to reschedule. So appreciating your patience and understanding as we rearrange things and bring them all together in perfect timing. So this call is being recorded. It will be shared with the ladies who can't be here this evening. So please bear the fact that that recording is taking place in mind as you share and choose what to share. And yeah, let's dive in, because this is really exciting. It's a beautiful topic. And if we haven't met, I think I've met everybody here, but if we haven't met, if you're tuning into this recording, because there's been a few people that I don't know sign up in the last couple of weeks, I am Nick Stewart, and I'm a performance and lifestyle consultant for ambitious and high achieving women. And I coach those ladies to create deeply satisfying lives, personal lives, alongside their professional pursuits. So that's what we're here in service of. So, bone deep courage. I have described this fifth trait of bone deep courage as sort of like the glue that binds all of the other traits together and makes them possible. So the first trait was prioritizing your fullness, the first trait we explored together, and being willing to prioritize the activities and rituals and boundaries that actually provide you with nourishment and support you to create the experience of living that are important to you, sometimes requires you to be willing to let people down, to be willing to disappoint people or do things that your mind might tell you is letting people down or disappointing people, risking saying no, setting boundaries, showing up differently. And that requires incredible courage. Our second trait that we explored together was relishing in receiving and letting support into your life. If you have been a woman who is highly competent and independent, as so many hardworking professionals are, actually being willing to slow down and ask for help, or to soften and let support in, let yourself be seen as somebody who needs support, which is all of us, can be really challenging and scary. And so that requires a beautiful flavor of courage. Your third trait is not taking yourself so seriously and being willing to access like the levity of the beautiful but excruciating experience of being a human, and being able to slow down enough to let go of your hypervigilance and the part of you that is seeking perfection and holding you to a ridiculous unrelenting standard, and freeing yourself from that seriousness and sort of keeping score with yourself requires a lot of courage. It requires you to face your patterns and to do things differently. And then finally, your fourth trait, expanded versus fixed thinking, that willingness to challenge your rigid ways of seeing the world, and to crack through the cages, perhaps, of layers of your identity, and being willing to let yourself live into something bigger that perhaps is breaking the rules, or the rules that you've created for yourself, or the rules that you have grown up under, requires a lot of courage. And so this fifth trait of courage, of bone deep courage, is such a beautiful weaving of the other traits, and it is this like binding agent that makes them all possible and makes them all come to life, and is just such a beautiful resource for you to be able to call on to serve your world, to serve yourself in the creation of the life that you desire. So I couldn't talk about courage and not acknowledge the work of Brené Brown. She is a wonderful leader on courage and vulnerability. And if you haven't heard of her, I highly recommend you check her out. But I want to begin by sharing, and I'll read it out because I want to get it right, a quote from Brené Brown that is such a like beautiful, oh, I've got some people showing up. It's such a beautiful like setting of the tone of what we're going to be diving in with tonight. Hello, welcome, welcome. So I'm just going to read this quote out for you. Courage is a heart word. The root of the word courage is cor, the Latin word for heart. In one of its earliest forms, the word courage meant to speak one's mind by telling all one's heart. Over time, this definition has changed, and today we typically associate courage with heroic and brave deeds. But in my opinion, this definition fails to recognize the inner strength and level of commitment required for us to actually speak honestly and openly about who we are and about experiences, good and bad. Speaking from our hearts is what I think of as ordinary courage. So thank you to the queen of courage and vulnerability, Brené Brown, for that one, because it's beautiful. And the reason that it sets the tone for how we're going to explore courage tonight is because it offers a frame that I want to deepen with, of the possibility that there is like this flavor of ordinary, what I'm going to call internal courage. And internal courage is the willingness, the bravery, the courage to feel oneself deeply, to be honest with yourself about what's actually going on in the internal realms, to feel your heart deeply, both the things that touch it and make it ache and make it contract, and the things that it deeply, deeply yearns for and craves. Being willing to feel those things and then to let them flow out of you into expression inside your relationship and in your world. And so that might look like letting yourself be seen as you feel those feelings, letting yourself be feelable, and actually speaking them through your words. And that internal courage is in contrast to what I'm calling external courage. And external courage is what as Brene says in that short paragraph, what we can typically, what's typically associated in our culture with the word courage or bravery, which is like big, bold actions and expressions of bravery. And while those things are beautiful, what I want to invite, and this has been true for myself and so many of the high achieving and hardworking and ambitious women that I have served, is that we can tend to be far more comfortable with the type of bold action required that means putting ourselves out there and taking big actions and being really brave. And that for many women that I've worked with, that feels easier than the excruciating vulnerability of being brave enough to tell somebody the truth about what's on your heart and to really let yourself be seen in that internal flavor of courage. And I want to check in with you. Does that ring as true for you? Can you relate to what I'm saying there? It's different for everybody, but I'm curious. Can give me a nod or a thumbs up. Yep. Thank you, Jill. Appreciate it. Yes. Susan. Yeah. Yeah. For Mel. Thank you. Yeah. Beautiful. So thank you for sharing and letting me know that you're on the same page. So, you know, that external sort of, we might almost call it a little bit of bravado, and the willingness to, and the ability and capacity to like push yourself to an edge, to push yourself to show up in a certain way that takes some real grit and guts, has made maybe yourself, certainly many of the women that I've worked with, and me, like professionally very successful. It serves you in today's culture, and it's very like celebrated and championed by today's cultural standards. And yet it doesn't serve you in the same way, and it doesn't support you in the same way when it comes to you wanting to create the sort of feeling tone of your life that most of the women that I work with are yearning for. And that's what I talk about, this deeply satisfied life, a life rich with connection and relaxation and softness and really deep, authentic intimacy with the people in your life. And those things that I just described require that internal courage, this slower, more ordinary, more relational courage. It's less about taking big, bold actions and more about, oh my gosh, can I hold myself in this sensation, in this moment of vulnerability, and tell this person the truth about what's going on in my world, or the truth about what I'm most yearning for? Or can I hold myself in this, like, oh my gosh, this feels so vulnerable, but I need to set this boundary in a different way with my colleague, or I need to speak up about something in my workplace that actually doesn't sit right with me. Yeah, these expressions of this like slower, more tender, softer flavor of courage can't be forced their way into in the way that you can sort of push yourself to an edge when you're in external courage. Internal courage requires a really soft, gentle holding, and it's not something that you can push yourself into in the same way. So checking in again, are you still with me? Is this making sense? And I'd really love to hear from a few of you of what you can notice straight away, like for yourself, as being the difference between internal and external courage for you, or times where you've expressed one or the other. I really want to land this through multiple voices because your experiences are so rich, and I know that they will help others to sort of identify that in themselves. So Tarina, and Susan, awesome. Yeah, Tarina was first, and then Susan, over to you. I can't hear you, darling. Tarina? We can't actually hear you at all. It's like, you've muted yourself. I think your audio might be a bit tricky. I'm going to go to somebody else. You guys have a play with your audio stuff and we'll come back to you. Susan. We're all having...
hope you can hear me.
Hey, yes, we absolutely can.
Sorry, I was late. I was putting a baby to bed. It's good to see you looking very well, Nick, and everybody else.
Thank you.
Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
Yes.
As soon as you started talking about that external courage and bravado, I just flicked back to 15, 17 years ago where I put that external mask to the world that everything in my life was fine, that I went to work, I functioned, I parented, but inside I was crumbling because I didn't have the courage to deal with what was happening in my marriage and with me. So definitely understand that external bravado. And sometimes we have to wear that bravado to support others, to achieve something that we're not feeling 100% best about, to show up to our business. But that internal courage is, I think everyone has access to it, but you definitely have to open many key pathways and doors and unlock whatever's holding you back to tap into your internal courage. And that's why I appreciate sessions like these, because it's helping me to acknowledge things that are working against me up here, but also in my heart.
Yeah, beautifully said. Thank you so much. And I know, because I know you a little bit, that you've had a real journey of finding your internal courage over those, as you say, 15 to 17 years, and the journey that you've been on. And so I'm curious to ask you the question, just to use you as a beautiful example, but can you feel how different those two flavors of courage are? Well, we just can't hear you. I think you're muted.
Yep. There we go.
Hey,
there you go. I'm on my phone.
Good.
That external courage, I feel like I'm holding it like a shield, or holding a mask to my face, and presenting a view to the world, that the world expects. I guess that I think that the world needs to see. I could be hiding how I'm really feeling, but it always feels disconnected from me internally. Now, in the internal courage actions, I mean, I've had that facing up to a relationship that wasn't working, preparing myself, preparing how to tell that other person, including a child. I've had conversations with friends where their actions have impacted me. They've been some of the hardest to do, and obviously the internal conversations with myself, and the feeling when I unlock the internal courage, I feel very fulfilled and on top of the world, exhilarated even, orgasmic even. Let me just put that way.
It's really rich, isn't it? Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing your experience and the contrast of those two. I really appreciate the way you articulated it and the clarity of your expression of them both. It's really beautiful. Who could relate to what Susan shared? Yeah, beautiful. Anybody else feel like offering their experiences of internal and external courage, or just what they're noticing from this process so far? Yeah, Katerina, we've got your tech sorted. Can we hear you?
I hope so.
Hey, yes. Ooh. I'm going to, 1 second, because we've got a little feedback. Yeah, that's okay. If you might just need to switch the sound off in your video. Yeah, so if you...
I might give up tonight, it's too hard.
Well, if you feel like typing it into the chat box, we'd love to hear what you have to say, even if it's in, or you could do it in interpretive dance. I'd like that, but maybe you wouldn't. So, all right, thank you, Dorina. So anybody else have anything to share on courage, internal, external, or just what you're noticing from this experience so far?
Hello.
Oh, hey, Mel. Yes,
can you hear
you? Totally.
Hey. I was just, as I was listening, I was thinking about a time in my life where it would look like from the outside, saying yes and, running multiple groups and running my private practice and starting all these great little, very demanding roles would look so courageous. It was, like the outfit at that time for my health and my fertility challenge was the bravest thing I could have done, which I ended up eventually doing, was actually saying, no, I need to pull out. I need to, like you did, I suppose, on some level, but for me it was a bigger pin pull of stopping a group when I was 2 out of 10 weeks in and saying I need to find another facilitator for this group, disappointing private practice clients that are in high psychiatric need and pulling away to regenerate myself and surrendering the perfectionism was the bravest thing. I'm really investing in a success to others by saying no. No was the bravest thing, not all the yeses that were being offered up for me to take. And it felt more grounded. It just felt like a relief and a release and a kind of surrender. The courage just felt like surrender when I went, I can't do this. No, I just need to stop, actually, and everyone's going to be okay. And I am replaceable, and that's humility as well. Humility, if not me, that people are resourceful and adaptable and will find another way, but there is no other me for me. So it just really felt really grounding and real, and yielded in time. It felt like the right thing. I couldn't say it felt orgasmic, that's for sure, but we should have.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing. And I can really hear in both of your shares that there's a flavor of like what culture or society might call admitting defeat in moving towards internal courage. It's like, oh, I should have capacity for this. I should be able to show up for these things. Look at me having the ability. Look at how capable I am. Like, I can make this situation work, that I'm bravely showing up for this, and I'm bringing my like grit and my I've got this. And actually the truth, the hard to tell truth was like, oh my God, I don't got this. I don't want to be in this marriage anymore. I don't want to run this program anymore. I need to put myself first. I'm going to risk letting these people down, or being honest that right now I don't have the capacity for this thing. And I think that, you know, that is one of the ways that our world has set us up to believe that courage is in fact these big expressions of boldness and bravery, and that's not the only way that bravery expresses. And so yeah, thank you for your shares, both of you. Tarina, it looks like you might have your tech sorted because you left with the other device, so we should not have feedback now. You up for having another go? You're still muted. This is cute.
Yeah, I think.
Hey, your voice is exciting.
It is. It's very exciting.
We lost the video, but we're getting there.
Can you still see us?
I cannot see you. That's okay, but I can totally hear you. Hey,
Oh, well,
there we go. Now I can see you as well.
Excellent. Well, I finally got it working. Yeah, look,
Forgot what I was going to share.
no, look, I have always been, I guess, quite effective at work and you know, outspoken, and did big scary things and stuff like that as I developed in my career. But in my relationships, I you know, I if I wanted to share, the man that I married originally when I was in my early 20s wasn't interested in listening, and then I left him and had a relationship with a woman for over 20 years, and she also certainly had a lack of interest in hearing what I thought and felt. So it took me a long time to unlearn those lack of communication skills.
Yeah.
That I developed. It's just I had to keep everything internalized because I had nobody who actually gave a shit about listening. Until now, I'm with my wife. She actually insists on understanding and knowing what I think and what I feel. And that was really hard to deal with to start with.
Yeah.
Because I didn't really understand. I'd buried my own feelings so deeply that I didn't know myself. And I had a few health issues that made things even more complicated. But it's so heartening and liberating to be able to be completely open and honest and feel safe in that. I can recall saying how I felt about something and then waiting for the no, you can't, and it didn't come. And you know, I hadn't realised until afterwards that I held myself in tension waiting for a negative response and didn't get one, and the relief was enormous. It was great. And it's such a wonderful thing to and a hard thing to do, to start, to actually be open and honest with how you feel, because certainly in my experience, nobody gave a shit. They didn't want to know. They just wanted me to be the person they wanted me to be, as opposed to who I am.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing. And I'm hearing that it was a really different experience to let yourself show up like that in your relationship, and to learn that new skill of being completely honest and like letting what's happening on the inside be seen and felt and heard on the outside, in comparison to doing what you called like sort of big scary things as you were progressing in your career. It's like it's a movement from a different place in yourself, isn't it?
Yeah.
Mm.
Catherine might want to add something.
Yeah, I had a conversation with someone today about a sort of similar thing where I've sort of lost what I was going to say, but no, it'll come back to me. I've just lost it. But
beautiful. Just
yeah, sorry.
No problems. All good. That's fine. We'll keep
about yeah, just like sometimes by saying what we want and how we feel and setting boundaries, sometimes we worry about whether it's going to hurt the other person or whether it's quite, you feel selfish. You think, oh, are they going to think that I'm all about myself or something? So it's hard to sometimes let go of actually just owning it and going, well, no, this is how I feel, or this is what I'd like, or so
this is what I don't want.
Yeah, and it's a balance. But it's amazing when you find someone in your life that you're free and comfortable enough to talk about those vulnerabilities and not be judged. I think, don't know if I explained it very well, but
no, it's beautiful, and I appreciate you sharing it, and I celebrate you two and your beautiful love that you share, and the gorgeousness that you've created together, because it's palpable and beautiful, the two of you just like beaming out of the little square at me. So yeah, celebrating the beauty there, and also you're so right that there's reasons that we haven't flexed this muscle, and it goes beyond just the piece, like the cultural piece that I pointed to before around those big external deeds being a little bit more celebrated, but that it's incredibly vulnerable to expose and reveal your heart to another in this way. And what I'm inviting is that you two gorgeous ladies are such an example of finding an external human in your life that is safe to do that practice with. And I wish that for everybody, that we have multiple beautiful humans in our world that we can do that level of authenticity and truth telling with, but that it begins with our relationship with ourselves. And so that's sort of the perfect, segue to keep climbing in, that the work here is to be able to be like, to deeply feel what's here first, before you have any pressure or expectation to share it with the world. But can I turn my presence and my focus and my compassion and like my soft gaze inwards to the deepest chambers of my heart and be honest with myself about what lies there? And that can be terrifying, because what are then, like, automatically the human identity, the mind wants to go to, well, what are the repercussions of me telling myself the truth about this? What will that mean for my life? How will that truth integrate with my world if the truth that's deep down in my being reveals to me that I desire something really different, or that I am a no to something that's happening in my life right now that might have me need to make some big changes, or that those deep truths that we're willing to let ourselves feel can rock our worlds if we have built our life based on who people expect us to be. And so sometimes when we turn our gaze and our attention and our presence inwards, it's like, oh my gosh, I didn't want to see that because I can't unsee it now. Yeah, it's frightening. I've certainly had that experience. And so one of the places that I think that this is a really important piece to acknowledge as well, is that one of the places that I see high achieving, hardworking women burn out is that they are expecting themselves to take a lot of actions that require that external courage that we've been talking about, like the big scary professional actions, the bravado showing up in the world as having capacity and competence actions, etc. But they don't have the internal resources to support that level of showing up in the world. And the expression of internal courage is, I'm going to suggest, one of the best ways to grow your internal resources. Susan, I love what you shared in your comment earlier, that the deepening with internal courage felt orgasmic to you. And I know that you shared that it didn't for you, Mel. But what I want to point to here is like the fullness and the abundance and the richness that can come from saying yes to your deeper heart. Even if it can feel really terrifying at the time, there is this like ecstatic freedom in telling the truth. And that can be incredibly pleasurable. But beyond just being pleasurable, it actually nourishes you. It's like food for your soul. It's you being congruent with your deepest heart, you letting the truth of what's inside you being expressed into the world, and then being willing to take a stand for your life, reflecting that truth back to you is like yum, 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 yum. There's no greater way than to say yes to yourself than by being willing to do that. And so it is literally like nourishment that your system gets to gobble up. And we can think of this as like a bank account. When you put deposits in the bank account, then you grow this like big, fat, juicy, rich well of resources that you get to pull on later. And Susan, you spoke it really beautifully as well, that sometimes that like external courage is really required. And I want to be clear that I don't see that there's anything wrong with external courage. It's not a bad thing. I'm simply offering that when we have it, external courage is our only option, that leads ultimately to feeling burnt out, feeling depleted, feeling lonely, and feeling incredibly under-resourced in our lives. So internal courage is the way that we can build our bank account, like our internal, yummy, nourished resource bank account. Being willing to feel ourselves deeply and tell the truth about what's on our heart, to reveal the truth of our heart to ourselves and then to others, is such a healthy bank account building activity, like nourishment and internal resource, internal courage, bank account building. And then when life requires you, because it does sometimes, to show up in a external courage sort of way, to bring your capacity to sort of draw your sword, like draw the sword of the warrior, if you will, to go out and get shit done, to maybe push yourself in a way that just this moment in time requires you to, you then have this nice, rich, fat, succulent bank account that you can draw down from to fuel you when life requires you to show up in that way. But so many of the women that I work with who are bordering on burnt out are like yearning, thirsty for a life rich in deep connection and intimacy and genuine, authentic relationships with the people in their lives. They're yearning for a life that requires them to cultivate internal courage. But all they have in their arsenal, all they have in their toolkit is external courage. And so they're making those like they're drawing down on that bank account and spending their like courage money, if you will, and that what that results in is that they end up in debt to themselves, and they end up depleting a set of resources or a bank account that they're not equipped to put deposits into in the same way through finding and then expressing internal courage. Think of what I look like when I relied on external courage to maintain my life. Oh yes, you have shared this with me before, Susan. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, it costs something to survive with a mask up to the world and not telling the truth to yourself and to the world. And yeah, it costs your health and well-being, it costs relationships, it costs a lot if that's the only courage that you have in your toolkit. And of course, you know, life happens. People pass away or they leave your life. Like, we lose our beautiful pets that we love. They, you know, grief occurs, those beautiful little four-legged creatures that don't live for as long as we are. Big changes happen in your life. People move away. Change occurs unexpectedly that's outside of your control. And life sometimes requires you to just show up for situations and circumstances. Things happen in your workplace or your business that mean that you end up under more load than what you anticipated, and you just need to show up. And there are feelings that come with all of these potential scenarios. You know, there's grief, there's exhaustion, there's ache, a heartache, physical exhaustion, emotional exhaustion. And when you know how to turn towards those things, using your internal courage to slow down enough to feel that ache, to be with your exhaustion, to be with your grief, then it can move through you and you heal and you grow. But when all you have is the ability to sort of show up with external courage, you will harden yourself to move through those experiences. You will become impenetrable and wear that armor and become sort of rigid and brittle and a bit calcified in the face of life's natural and normal challenges. So it's really normal. Life happens. Life does its thing, as we've just spoken about, and we can't control life. Yeah, it's like we're all at different life stages, and we all know that in this exquisite human experience, between now and when we shuffle off this mortal coil, we are going to have both beautifully ecstatic times and times that are devastating and full of grief and full of challenge, and that is life. We can't control that. All we can do is equip ourselves to, as best as possible, show up for the wild adventure that is living in this human experience. And this beautiful internal courage is what is going to give you that capacity to turn towards yourself regardless of what is going on, because you can't selectively numb yourself out. You know, we can't selectively choose what to feel and what not to feel. And, you know, if you imagine that the human experience exists on a spectrum, as I just suggested, that there's one end of like elation and bliss and ecstasy, and at the other end there's like real grief and anger and rage and pain. And there's a myriad of human experience in and along that spectrum. If we don't want to feel the challenging end of the spectrum And so when those things show up, we harden our heart and we close off to those things. We numb ourselves, we distract ourselves, we don't turn towards ourselves. That spectrum exists in a bit of balance. And when we numb our grief and our pain, we have less capacity to access our ecstasy and our passion and our joy and our bliss and elation. And slowly life becomes a narrower expression of what it is to be a human being. And yes, we might be a little bit safer from those big sensations, though we are actually just not really living. So I want to check in with all of you, make sure that you're all still with me, see if there are any questions, or if there is anyone who would like to share what the question that I'd love to ask at this point is, what would be possible in your life if you had like a bigger, fatter, richer bank account balance of that internal courage resource? Or just, you know, if that doesn't feel alive for you, what you are noticing for yourself around courage.
Can I ask, can you hear me?
Yes, can, Jill. Would love to hear from you.
So to tap into this aspect of ourselves, would that be through meditation? How would you suggest we do that?
Yeah, beautiful question. Thank you. And I'm actually going to guide a little process to give you an experience of that after this round of sharing. So if I can invite you to hold that question and I'll answer it shortly. Is that okay?
That's fine. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you for your question. It's a really important one, is the like, well, how? Yeah, beautiful. Anybody else feel like sharing? What would be possible for you if you have more of this internal courage, or just what you're noticing from this session so far?
Hey, Nick, it's Susan.
Hey.
Sorry, didn't put my hand up.
It's fine. All good.
If I only had a conversation the other day about feeling I'm holding myself back and holding myself back on a number of levels. So if all of that was removed and my internal courage, which is there, but I've got like a cork on it, I would be unstoppable, and I could actually end up turning my whole world upside down, which is probably part of the reason why I'm holding myself back, because I know it's going to instigate a lot of change.
Yeah.
It could change where I'm living. It could change my relationship status. It would definitely change my financial status. But I've never been in it for the money. So yeah, interesting. If I really, really gave into my internal courage, I would be living a completely different life to the one I'm living today. And I'm quite happy or comfortable in this life that I'm in.
Yes.
And I know there's more that I want that I don't have, but you know, you just go through and you weigh everything up, and I'm content, I guess.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Thank you so much for speaking to that. And I'm really glad that it came up. And I think it's really normal. I see it as really normal that if we really ask ourselves what could be possible, so often the answer is, I don't know who I would be on the other side of that. And that's terrifying for the human identity, that like that the most valuable currency going around for the human self is the known. It's like, oh, I am so safe in the known, in what is known and familiar. And so for that very beautiful human part of you, and very welcome human part of you, the idea of transforming to the point that you don't know who you would be, and that you're risking a relationship and life change, like there's so many things there. It's like, that's really terrifying. So thank you so much for being honest, and it's really, I'm really glad that came up. So appreciate your sharing. So that feels like the perfect segue. So rather than hanging out and keeping the door open to see if there are other shares, I'm going to open for more shares at the end, but I'm going to take us into a process now. And so what we're going to do is go into a bit of a meditative journey. And so to do that, I'm going to invite you to sit in a position that is really comfortable for you, and to put everything out of your hands, and to let you know that you're welcome to switch your cameras off if that feels more comfortable to you, but it's entirely up to you. So closing down your eyes. And just placing your feet flat on the floor. Or if you're laying down and that's not possible, that's fine. Just bringing awareness to your body, contacting whatever is underneath you. Maybe it's your sit bones and this chair that you're sitting on. Maybe it's your feet on the ground. Maybe it's the back of the couch supporting you, holding you, just taking in that sense of physical support. You are being held right now by something. So we're going to take a couple of nice big deep breaths here, letting your abdominal muscles be really soft so your belly button can hang out away from your spine. Nice big inhale through your nose, letting your belly inflate like a balloon. And then a nice long slow exhale through your lips. Inhale through the nose, using that breath to just say welcome to yourself. Welcome to all of the bits of you. And exhale, just letting yourself land a little more deeply into this moment. And as you take in this sense of being held by whatever it is that's holding you, the chair, the couch, the ground, the seat back, just taking in that sense of physical support. Because as what has been illustrated so beautifully by the sharing this evening is that the edge, the place that we need to be willing to go to cultivate more internal courage and to allow ourselves to express greater internal courage, is to increase our sense of being safe. We want to increase our sense of safety inside ourselves. Now, the core main reason that we lean away from internal courage is because somewhere along the way we have learned that it is not safe. Somewhere along the way, your beautiful heart has learned that it is not safe to be fully felt. Somewhere along the way, through your experiences, through your conditioning and the environment that you were raised inside of, you have learned, or some part of you has learned, that it's not safe. And so just letting yourself take in that sense of very practical support that is happening right now, that you are being held, you're being held by a couch or a chair, and letting yourself rest into that. What we're doing right here is working with your animal body, with your nervous system to say, oh, it's safe. And we're softening and relaxing your abdominal muscles and letting your belly button hang away from your spine, because that is another way that we are sending the message to your animal body that you are safe. We're going slowly through this process, and I'm repeating myself a number of times because as we slow down, you have space then to notice the subtlety of what might be going on for you. And it's also, again, sending the message to your animal body, this is safe. And so as you rest into this moment and you're breathing deep into your nice soft abdominal muscles and you're resting into the physical support of this chair and you're taking in that sense of being held, I just want you to tune into your internal courage bank account. You can do that, but by just bringing your presence and your awareness to, it's like, oh, internal courage, bringing your presence and your awareness to that topic. How internally resourced do I feel? Is my internal bank balance low? Is it really fat and rich and ripe, like overflowing? I've got lots to spend. Maybe there's a sense of feeling a bit numb and disconnected from that, and that's entirely welcome and okay. But just noticing what comes up for you when you ask yourself that question, what's my internal resource bank balance like? And trusting whatever you notice. And continuing to feel yourself here and just noticing whatever is rising in you. Maybe you are seeing that for you, you've got like a 4 out of 10 of internal courage, or a 6 out of 10. I'm using a really simple scale there to represent this, but just noticing, it's like, oh, how much internal resource do I have in my bank account? And then feeling your precious heart. Feeling your precious heart. Feeling, and you might want to place one of your hands on your heart and your heart space physically on your chest to connect with this part of you. Continuing to breathe deeply with that awareness of like, oh, I've got a 4 out of 10 of internal courage, or whatever came up for you. And feeling your precious heart. Feeling all of the times in the past where you have done a beautiful job of protecting and upholding your heart, and therefore it trusts you to open, to feel, and to express. Maybe the times where you haven't done such a beautiful job. Maybe there's remorse there, or sadness, disappointment. And just noticing what tones and flavors and memories show up as you feel your own beautiful heart in conjunction with awareness of your internal courage. And we're going to ask your beautiful heart right now. And you're going to trust whatever comes up. Asking your beautiful heart, what do you need to be able to feel safer, to trust more, to open more, so that I can display and express more internal courage? It's like, so I can tell the truth of what's on my heart even more. And maybe you're already rocking along and you've got a 7 or 8 out of 10 of courage, and you're like, oh, I'm feeling great. I just need I need to slow down. And sometimes I just move a little bit too quickly. And so my heart doesn't quite get the chance to fully feel the nuance of what's going on. Or maybe you've got more like a 3. And this is tender and slow. And you're going, oh my gosh. Oh, my heart is revealing to me that what I really need to do is spend time every day journaling and connecting with my deeper truth of my heart, and then find 3 safe people in my life who I can share what comes up with them, and to tell more truths about my heart. Who could those people be? Maybe it's just about telling myself the truth of what's in my heart every day. Really trusting whatever comes up. What is it that your heart needs to feel safer? So that you can increase your internal courage bank balance. So that you can be more courageous when it comes to the feeling of and then expression of your heart in your life. And we're going to take 3 more big, deep breaths here. Big inhale through the nose, receiving all that wisdom from your deeper being willing to trust whatever comes up. And then an exhale. Another big inhale through your nose, filling up your belly, filling up your heart and your chest with precious oxygen and life force. And then one final breath in through the nose, knowing that you can return to this space of deep connection with yourself anytime you like. In fact, I highly recommend it. In through the nose. And as you take that 3rd exhale, just slowly fluttering your eyelashes open, coming back to the room. You can start your video again if you would like. And I'd love to open to hear from a few of you of what it is that you learnt about what you need to expand your internal courage bank balance. What came up? What do you need more of in your life? Yeah, go for it, guys. Just unmute yourselves, jump in. We're a small group tonight, so take it away, whoever's ready.
Now we can talk.
Hey.
Took us a while again. Yeah, we're a bit challenged tonight. For me, I think that the first thing for me is to be honest with myself, because I don't even admit to myself that I'm unhappy or that I've got a problem or that things are challenging.
Yeah.
So I just need to be open to that to start with. And from there, then I've got something to share, but I really need to let myself in on it sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful. Thank you for saying. And so my next question for you then, Tarina, and you don't have to answer this right now, but in support of that, what can you create as like a ritual for yourself in your life that will facilitate you doing that on a regular basis? Like just having could be a 10-minute timer once a day where you check in with yourself and just drop in like we just did right now and breathe and feel yourself and go like, oh, what's going on in here? Because if you haven't lived a life where it's normal to practice being in really deep connection with what's going on, and you're sort of being more practiced at being resilient and just getting on with the job, which I know I can certainly relate to, and many women that I work with can relate to, that having a like structure in your life that supports you to be in regular connection with the deeper part of your being and listening to the wisdom that's there will help like go from what might at the beginning feel a little bit like a rutty full drive track that you're like, oh, I've got to get to this part of myself. It feels like it's all the way over there in like this hidden mysterious forest. And eventually when you travel that road really regularly and consistently, it becomes a well-worn path through the woods and it becomes easier to travel. And then the communication goes along that path more regularly and easily as well. And you'll notice yourself having more and more normal awareness of the internal world. So just something for you to ponder is what sort of structure could you create to support yourself?
Yeah, look, I think that's pretty worthwhile actually. But one thing that I do in addition to that is I'm making myself more aware of my physical cues. Like feeling, I just sort of stop myself and feel, well, am I feeling tense? Okay, I am. Why am I feeling tense?
Yeah.
And have that little myself.
Yeah.
To try through.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. Thank you for saying. And that's a really beautiful one to do is to use the like body scanning of like, oh, I'm actually like a croissant right now. What's going on? Like I'm carrying all this tension in my shoulders and chest and I'm all like crunched up. What's going on with that? Like, what am I stressed about, or what tension am I carrying? And maybe it's not as exaggerated as being a croissant, but those little places of tension or your body contraction is such a beautiful one to use as well. Those physical cues. Thank you for sharing. Would anybody else like to share about what they are or what their heart is yearning for to support greater internal courage?
Yeah, I can add something, I guess.
Yeah.
For me, my major turning point with this was finding out my mum had pancreatic cancer and she was given 5 months to live. She actually lasted 3.5 years. She was a miracle. But through that sort of period of watching her fade away, I made decisions that I should have made long before, because I wanted Mum, it's going to get me really emotional, but I wanted Mum to see me happy. And I was scared to do that for myself. But I did it for my mum. And that was the turning point for me to now have that life that I want.
Yeah.
When I got with Serena, it was hard because I felt selfish, and at times I felt rude, because it was like, hang on, no, this is what I'll tolerate, this is what I won't tolerate. And but being able to express that, I can't tell you ladies enough how it's life-changing. And it is fear, it's fear-based.
Yeah.
And you go through shit times. You can make a decision, and then you've got all those consequences, but you get through it. And getting through it and on the other side and being true to yourself is the best thing. And life is too short. That's what I got, from Mum. I've got to live the life that I want. And it's a miracle now. I wish I had that wisdom when I was 20.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing. There's some lessons that we just have to hard win along the way. Hey. Yeah. We don't have to, but many of us do, and that's okay. That's really okay. I'm glad that gift came into your life from that incredibly challenging time. Thank you for sharing your experience.
This is the first session I've been to. I wasn't able to go to other sessions, and I'm aware that once you open up, it can open a Pandora's box, and I don't want to take over a lot.
You're really welcome to. And, we're coming to the end of the session, so if people need to go to bed, they can, and you and I can hang out.
No, I'm a lot older than all of you. I'm over 70, and I've been a career person. I've worked really, really hard, and it affected my health. It was sales-orientated position, and brought my son up on my own from the time he was 3, and everything I've achieved, I've done it myself. After I retired, I did some hosting winery tours and other sort of part-time jobs. So I've always been an achiever, and I get energized with people. And I've done an amount of work on myself, so I know my personality type. I'm at a different stage in my life to most of you, and it's sort of what next? Where do I see myself in 5 years, and so on. And I have reasonable health. I'm actually 78, so I have good health, and I exercise, and I keep a routine. I find if I'm out of my routine, I flounder a little bit. I like to have structure, and I'm used to planning. I don't know if it's called an A-type personality or what, but I don't want to dominate and take over too much.
You're great.
Somehow your information came up, and I thought that would be a good idea to join in. So it's really figuring out where I see myself. Should I relocate? And that seems overwhelming. I actually used to sell retirement homes to people 55 and over. There was a base plus commission, but I loved my job. I really loved it because I was helping people. That's part of my personality. Now I'm sort of in that position myself. There's a lot more of those sort of lifestyle villages around.
Yeah.
I have someone in my life, but we don't live together, and we're on different wavelengths in many aspects. And I say to myself, I'll just take the good. He's a musician. I'll just take the good things out of it. But as far as having emotional intimacy, which during that meditation, I realized I crave emotional intimacy to different people. And I know you're in a relationship, Nick, and I forgot your names, you two T and B's phone. And I know what I crave, and no man is an island, and that's sort of where I'm at right now. I'm involved in a number of activities, U3A, University of the Third Age, and Zumba classes, and I want to go back to salsa dancing and quite a few things. I'm finding my energy levels are a bit depleted now.
Yeah.
Aware of that. And I guess I need to pace myself. So I'm at a different stage in my life, but I still feel that there's a lot of things I can achieve. So that's where I'm at. And the content of what you mentioned, that you're inviting people to become part of your group, appealed to me.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you, Jill. And it's wonderful to meet you, because I've seen your name floating about, but we haven't crossed paths live time yet. So I'm really glad that you're here, and it's wonderful to see your face and just celebrating the beauty of the life that you've got for yourself, and the things that you're doing, and your health and your vibrancy at 78. It's really wonderful. So congratulations. And also,
sorry interrupting, I used to do tap dancing with perform at aged care facilities, and I absolutely love that. In fact, I'm having a lunch with the tappers tomorrow, but COVID changed all that. I think COVID affected a lot of things. And my yoga teacher that I've known for 25 years, sadly, she passed away. Pancreatic cancer, actually, yes. So I'm looking to find a new yoga teacher. And I know the things that make me happy. I love walking on the beach. I've joined a group that does beach walking. So I know myself pretty well.
Yeah.
But, what I crave, the heartfelt stuff, is yet to be come into my life.
Yeah, I really heard your yearning for emotional intimacy and to feel seen.
Yes, and appreciated.
Yeah, beautiful. And such a what a rich project for an intrepid woman such as yourself to take on at 78 and say, oh my gosh, I want my heart to be seen and felt and appreciated by people.
Yes.
And where are the doorways to that in your world? And I imagine that there's some that maybe you haven't considered, like of doorways and opportunities to experience that in your life right now with the friendships and relationships that you have, and beautiful new creative ways to invite that into your life as well. So yeah, thank you for being up for feeling that yearning and being truthful with yourself, and then sharing that with all of us. It's really precious. So, gorgeous women, thank you for staying with me. We have gone a little bit over this evening, so I appreciate your presence, and I appreciate you all being here for this fifth and final call as we've explored courage together. And I really encourage and invite all of you to continue this journey of deepening with knowing what it is that's in those deep chambers of your heart, and being willing to be truthful with yourself and then others about them, because that, I believe, is an infallible compass to a rich and really deeply satisfying and wonderful life, if you're up for hearing those yearnings and boundaries and desires, and then following and enacting them into your world. So thank you so much for being here. I'm going to wrap us up and send you all into your Wednesday evening and say thank you so much, and see you soon.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.